smoking a pancake. That's right.
Do you think we
I'm going to get a
do you
contact
think
high.
do you think we can have? I think you can have weed in the podcast, right?
I don't see why not.
I feel like they would let you.
How do they know if that's not nicotine?
True. Well, because we said it was. That's like the stupidest
You
thing.
outed us.
That's like the stupidest thing we could have done. All right, guys. So we are back for another Tell No Lies episode number 4. I am your host, Devin, Physique, and you know we're going there with the co-host, Dr. Ashley Contorno.
That is me.
Yes.
Hello.
She made it. You're back again.
Hi.
You haven't got sick of me yet.
No, what'd you say? It was 5 episodes and then you're solid and you're...
I don't know. I think it is 5.
Well, we're almost there.
But we also had this discussion where, like, there's been maybe like 2 days out of our friendship where you haven't heard from me, and it's like a sick mother looking for her infant child.
I was like question marking his text. I called him a couple times.
Yeah,
and I was like,
that was like a psychotic ex-girlfriend.
listen, I had a man in my life die on me, so
That's fair.
You know?
But I mean, like, we're talking like 8 hours.
No, it was like 12. You're very responsive, and for you to drop off and just not text me, call me back, nothing, I was like, what happened? Who killed you?
And you know, I think we haven't had extensive conversations, but there's times where, like, me talking to you consistently, that's not the norm for me. So I think there's some times where I just put myself in a silence mode and just don't answer anyone.
It's just all about expectation. Next time, just tell me.
But it was nice to know that, like, man, there's someone that really cares about me out there. Yeah.
I care.
So I'll give you props for that. But then there was that other nagging, like, bitch, like, how many times you gonna fucking message me?
And then I have his address on my Amazon, and I accidentally sent him sunscreen because it defaulted to his address, and he thought that I cared about him so much because he was tanning.
And that day I posted a story about me out, and I was like, is she really, like, monitoring me like that?
Like, Mom.
Like, is this her subtle way of being like, son, put your sunscreen on so you don't die? Oh my God, that's fucking hilarious.
So today we left off part 1 of you talking about Shredz, and we're going into part 2. But what I think we didn't touch on enough or explain enough is what the company of Shredz is, because this was 10 years ago. It was like one of the first fitness brands, but kids nowadays don't necessarily know what Shredz is. And so maybe you can give a little more detail on the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking about that too. Like, as I tell my story and retract my steps, I'm like, and we talked about too, like, there's people in your journey that don't know that side. So me just talking freely as if everyone knows, I thought giving a reintroduction of like what exactly it was. And so, you know, when it comes to the fitness industry, like you see now, there's tons of companies and entrepreneurs and fitness influencers all over, right? And so back in those days, there wasn't anyone doing that. I don't even think the idea was like fathomable.
When did they start? 2012?
What's the
Shredz?
No, I mean, maybe a year before that. So maybe 2001.
11.
Sorry,
Okay.
2011. That was like when they recruited me, that was like the start of it. So they only had it for maybe like 6 months.
And Instagram started in 2010. So they were like
right at the forefront.
right there.
Yeah, I mean, our graphics were so ghetto, in correlation to what you see now and how people market. But what Shredz represented was the founding, like forefront of what you see now. Like, we were that first company to do it, not just to do it, but to do it big. And I think I've talked about it too. Like, when you do something first, since there's no one to follow, there's nothing to follow after, you also become like, when success is there, people praise you for it. And then when there's failure, you also get that shit too.
Yeah.
So we were the pioneers of fitness, and what you see these influencers doing nowadays, that's what we were doing 10 years ago.
Because almost every single person that was a part of the Shredz brand then is still Instagram famous
and doing their own thing
to this day.
And no one's a part of the company at all.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show you that we were able to still keep our personal brand within the company. And as we grew with the company, we were known through them, but we were also creating our own brands, because the three of us that were the main athletes, we never, none of us replicated each other. Paige was a girl, and obviously we're 2 dudes, and then Joey's the big bodybuilder, and I'm more of the aesthetic. So we all fit in our lane, and then we just rose at the same time.
What if there was a supplement brand today that you could compare how big Shredz was to, so people kind of get an idea, like Quest, Animal?
I would actually say I think First Form.
First Form?
And for stability, like, they've been at the top like
forever,
right? I mean, and Andy's the forefront of that, right? And so, and everyone always looks up to him, like everything he talks about when it comes to business and life and, growth and all that stuff. Like, he was around back when we were doing it, but also he can succeed even more because he could look at us and say, like, this is what you don't do. You know, and back then there was no don't do. So that's what I wanted to bring attention to with the Shredz aspect was, you know, we were the pioneers of it, you know, and that's the starting blocks. You know, it's normalized now, so, but back then it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we finally figured out that, like, even though I already knew, like, living out there was no longer serving me, you know, I moved back to California.
Wait, living out where? Remind
in Jersey.
Yes.
Yeah, living in Jersey, first time ever. Moved back to California, go back to Orange County, which is, you know, pretty much where I came from. And at that time, I remember Chad was also coming back with me, but because, you know, he had more responsibilities, he was coming at a later date. So we get our first apartment. Now we're living back home. And you know, once that happened, it was probably like July or so, June, July, and then shortly after this, we're heading right into the Olympia. So this was perfect timing for me to get back, get settled, and now we're going to this Olympia. Like everyone.
But you had a big purchase before the Olympia.
Yeah, but we already talked about that in the last episode.
I know, but like. How
the
cool.
GTR, yeah. She said, how cool.
How cool.
Hey, we're on to the next phase.
But you got to do that because you weren't paying rent the whole time you were
Correct.
living
I mean,
there.
saving my money, tremendous amount.
You were cash.
Yeah.
You
This
were
was
sitting on cash.
That's what I'm saying. This was just a start, you know? So, yeah, I got the GTR, was on a high from that. And then, you know, then Olympia is coming and we have the hype for it. Now people know who we are. And
this is Olympia 2014.
2014. So I was 24 years old. And I actually have a picture from that Olympia, but that was the first year in the history of Olympia that someone had a booth as big as ours. And I think at the time it was like $1 million we spent on the booth.
Insane.
Yeah, it was just like $1 million. And then we were giving away free supplements on top of that, like just throwing it for people to just grab onto. And, you know, I don't know if did you ever go to any of the like Olympia expos at all?
I've never been to Olympia, but
I mean, it's like every other expo,
yeah.
You know, like whatever industry it is, you go and you see the top athletes for that industry and, you know, people buy supplements and, you know.
How long were people waiting to see you guys?
So for that one, that was definitely the biggest line. And you know what's crazy is not just the amount, but the person that was at the front that told us how long she had been waiting, she was like a super fan and she already had seen us. So the fact that she waited 4 hours.
First person there of the day.
Person, and she already met us all.
4 hours.
4 hours.
Dang.
And I'll never forget her Instagram. I don't know if it's still the same, but it was called Monkey Butt. And we all knew her.
Yeah.
Like we all knew her like as just a normal person.
Was she in the fitness or no?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, everyone that was a follower or fan was obviously getting into fitness, a fan of fitness, whatever. So she was like a mother, had several kids, and yeah, she was just all about our brand. Like she just was obsessed with the brand.
Autographs, pictures, all that.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah, she was just all in. But just to think like 4 hours with somebody like that's already seen us, like I was like, I wouldn't even wait 4 seconds to meet me. So it was a humbling experience. At this point, we were like celebrities. And I remember when we entered these Olympias, like we had to have security. Like because we didn't want to be like the bad guys. Because if we just walked down the you know, the boot space, people would be grabbing us, especially Paige. Oh my God, it was insane.
Yeah.
So it was never the representation of like, we don't want to look like the bad guys by saying no, because we were not saying no. Just we need to get from point A to point B. So I mean, that's like some celebrity shit.
Did you feel like didn't you say there was like a 60-foot tall banner just of you?
Yeah, that year. I don't know how many feet it was, but it was absurd. Like, and there was like, I don't know. I think when I look back at things now, I remember when we were kind of like, you know, going over everything, like I don't think I appreciated the things that I had that were the success of mine because of ultimately what happened to me at the end.
Yeah.
So it's almost like all that memory was erased, even the good parts.
Yeah.
I only remember the bad parts, which is kind of sad.
Yeah.
But if I looked at my phone and we were kind of, you know, going down memory lane, there was a lot of things that I experienced at a young age that people never get to experience in their life.
It probably felt surreal.
Yeah. I mean, but it was just part of it. Like, I don't think I was thinking about those things at 24, 25. Like, I was just doing what I loved and I was making a lot of money doing it. And I don't think there was one time in my brain that I thought this was ever going to change. And I was just on one, you know, like, I don't think I looked at it and was like, man, there's a poster of me. I'm like, yeah, that poster's up there with me because I deserve that shit. That's my mindset when the things were happening. But when you look back now and the fact that I did it at a young age, you're like, damn, we were just doing next level shit. But that was the intent. There was like as much popularity that we created, there was like that demand for it. And then we also made the statements. And they just all fit. And we created like a movement through it, and people were just obsessed. And remember, back then, there's no competitors. You know, like there was other brands doing it, but very few. And then to find, you know, we would have to do a statistic on 10 years ago, how many people were using Instagram to sell and how many are using to sell now. I bet you the numbers are drastically. You know, like back in those days, were you selling anything? You were just viewing, if anything, buying.
I was posting like pictures of recipes I cooked.
And then potentially even buying shreds, like, because at some point, like, that's just what it became the norm. Like, if it's hyped on something, anything in life, people are like, I got to get it.
And there was no paid advertising on Instagram. You weren't getting ads. Only
I think there was ads, you know, later into the end of our part, but for the most part, not necessarily, because everything was still chronological back then. Instagram was different. You know, we went through all those phases. No message, only no videos. There was no DMs back in those days. So, you know, obviously Instagram has progressed where, like I said, when I was telling the story of our last episode into this one, there's going to be times where people are listening to my story and it's going to feel so normal to them. They're not going to think of it the way that people were thinking about it 10 years ago.
None of that was real back then. Did you feel supported by the brand of Shredz? Like they gave you all these opportunities to do what you wanted, like, or did you feel restricted in any way?
I mean, the restriction would be the exclusivity if you looked at it as a restriction. But to me, if they're going to pay me more and I get to invest into one company, I would rather give my all to one than to be dispersing myself everywhere. So, and they always commit, like they followed with every commitment. So there was, if I had an opportunity, which I did when I was with Live Fit Apparel, I forget how much they were paying me. I want to say $5,000. And there was just a time where Arvin was just like, I don't want you working for them because he didn't want me posting someone else. So he's like, I'll give you that plus 2 more. I was like, done. And then I moved on because easier for me and I get more money. So they were always loyal to me in that sense. That's why I did everything. I mean, I have, you know, the Shredz tattoo on my hand. And even for me now, I don't look at it and say to myself like, oh, that was the biggest mistake. Like it was a part of me. I don't think there was a time when I was a part of it that I thought it was ever going to end at all. That never crossed my mind. So when I was doing things, I was doing it genuine because I was showing my commitment. I think that started from when I moved to Jersey. You know, like that was showing like I'd never been there in my life. Never even been there, like let alone like a field trip. Yeah, to move, you know, away from my family and to just go with my new best friend and with the company that I don't necessarily know them, you know, but I just, everything they said, it was true. Like, so I just did what they said. It's not like I got on and didn't do shit. I started putting in work, but what they told me if I did, I would get. I was getting it, you know, step by step. I was just getting exactly what they were saying. So I would say shortly after Olympia, again, just, you know, gaining more steam, getting more notoriety for things like, you know, they started to expand more into like, you know, getting ambassadors now because that was a thing, you know, and I think that was one of the struggles the athletes had too, is we started to look at numbers versus looking at like, do they fit the brand? Yeah. And now, again, we have a history long of like what works and what does it analytically. And so bringing on a girl that's hot with a million followers, but all her followers are dudes, well, what female product can she promote? Right. You know, but these are early stages. No one was doing those things. So, you know, that became a conflict at a certain point. And, you know, so when I got back from Olympia, I want to say maybe like 6 months into living with Chad, this was the first time that I felt like I was back at home, right? And so when I was living with Chad in Jersey, it was never home to me. So when it was dirty, I just kind of turned a naked eye to it. So when we lived together here, he finally moved full time back here because his responsibility. You knew it
was temporary, so it didn't matter.
Went back in Jersey, yeah. So I just kind of viewed it differently. But when we live together in California now, I was butting heads because I just am very cleanly and he wasn't. And
Devin is OCD. Okay, Devin is like, I am like a very cleanly, organized person, and Devin like blows me out of the water. I am always surprised. Like even down to everything that's on your counter is like in line perfectly. It's a good thing though. I've never met a man as cleanly and as tidy as you are. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So that just little things started to bug me. And it's funny because the things that used to bug my mom when I was being raised by her were like things that I started to pick up on when someone was doing it to me in my house. You know, like one of the things that bugged me the most is like he would get protein and like put it in his protein shake, but he would leave a fucking dust little whatever on the counter. I'm like, how do you not see this, man? Yeah. And so it would build up. So I'd come up one day and it's all sticky. And I'm like, I'm not your fucking mom. Like, I shouldn't be taking care of you. So, and I could see it. I would be like calling him out on it. And I remember we had this relationship. It's kind of funny, but we had this relationship where he was very submissive to me. Like, he was not alpha whatsoever. So when he'd piss me off, his way of apologizing is he would write me notes.
That's cute.
And he would leave them on the desk. Like
I'm so sorry, babe.
And like, honest to God, like back in those days, I don't know why, but I was like, sometimes I was just so pissed at him, I just never even read them. There was a couple times I'm like, I'm not reading this shit. Be a man and say it to my face. I would literally tell him that because I'm like, who does that? I get it. When I look at it back now, like obviously there could be some directive harshness to my tone like that, but still from another man to you, I just want you to say it to my face, not write a little note. It's like such a
take
girl
accountability
thing.
In person.
Yeah. So I think that was why I was like annoyed. So anyways, I told him like, yo, like we're at a point where if our relationship's gonna continue to flourish, like I need to move out. And so we agreed. He stayed where we were at. And then I moved shortly, like right next door. It was called the Essex Skyline. And like back in those days in Orange County, that was like the place to be. High rise, like your glass windows everywhere, like more glass windows than just walls.
Like ceiling, floor to ceiling. That's sick.
Exactly. And you could see it from the freeway, and you could see like if someone had their window open, you could see right through because they'd have their lights on, whatever. So yeah, I just decided to move there. So I found a place there. And I ended up living there for like, I want to say like maybe 2.5 years. And then I ended up upgrading from where I initially was. But when I had upgraded, I had lived there for a while now. And at that time, because we were building back over to California, we ended up making similar to how we talked about with Jersey, how they had, they're bringing in the back house and they're having people, rent free in these little, like you said, were they losing money? I mean, we obviously were making enough. It didn't matter to just have them like when they wake up, they just go right up to the office.
So
like
everybody moved there?
I mean, there was more back end people at this point for the Jersey one, but they did the same type of operation for the present day, which was in the West Coast. They're like, yeah, we need a spot there. So like they got the one above me. I was on the 23rd, I think. And even Chad, shortly after living in that place, he moved there too. And we ended up becoming neighbors. We were both on the 23rd floor, which was considered the junior penthouse. And we were conjoined. So like I could go on my balcony, hit a latch and walk right over to his, and I'm in his backyard. And then I could just be knocking on his big ass glass window. Like, where are you?
So your relationship stayed okay because you guys separated.
Yeah. Like once we moved separate and he got his own place and I was in my own, we were completely fine. Yeah, it was just the little, like, again, the difference was I wasn't thinking of Jersey as this is home. So, like, being messy was fine. But now that I'm living here, I'm paying. Like, when I moved back, I'm not paying rent anymore. I mean, I'm paying rent now.
Right. So who all moved into the place?
So, by the time that we fully loaded that place, within the next year, I would say Joey moved there. And some left shortly after, but some stayed for a good while. But Joey was there. Paige was there. Jessica Aravella was there. And at that time, she was another big female athlete. And then, obviously, myself, Chad was there. And then the operations, which was the 25th. We were the 23rd, and theirs was the 25th. And it's like a standalone up there by itself. But it was like 10 G's a month to live there. Because me and Chad were both paying like, I think his might have been like 100 or 2 more than me because of where like his view saw out into the city of Orange County. Mine saw more to the freeway. So his was slightly, but it was like $5,700 each.
Did you guys have like events or anything there since you guys were there?
So they every year, because that place was just so pristine, like everything in that garage was just insane. Like every car, like what place do you know that puts on a car show at their own?
The apartments put on a car show?
Their own every year.
That's so cool.
I know, and the cars were for all the people living there.
Because you had money to have.
I don't even think that anyone brought a car there that wasn't living there. We didn't need to. So I mean, by the time that I got into it, I had my whole arsenal, of cars, which, at that time, like once I got the GTR, I wasn't even a car person or any kind of motor type of person. I think I talked about in the last episode, I just liked how a GTR was. I didn't know people were obsessed with that car, especially, when I got that car, like backstory on why that car is popular. It's like, it was in Fast and the Furious. And then, I don't know, it's just the car scene. That's like their dream car. To get to that, it's obtainable because it's not like super expensive. Like I paid $110, so it's like that one where it's like expensive, but it's if someone works hard, they can get it. And back in those days, when I got it 10 years ago, like it was easier to or you were making money as a normal job than you were doing social media. Now there's a lot of kids at 20 that have that car because they're doing stuff at an early age on social media and making money.
It was a sports car, not a supercar.
What was the sports car?
The GTR.
Yeah, but it was like their supercar. It
Yeah.
was Nissan.
Yeah.
You know, like how badass could you make a Nissan other than that, you know?
You got something else after that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, as I lived there and I had the representation with all my cars, it's more elaborating. Like I was just in this mode of like buying things. So shortly after that, I bought a bike, and I didn't even I had my license, but I had my license, but I had no bike, no helmet. I just went and got it without getting the other things first.
Preparation.
So I just had it for like 2 years. So I was like, yo, this is a perfect opportunity. So I had a friend that was a rider at the time. So we went like on the park and rode it for a bit, and boom, I got it, my license renewed and got me a bike. And I just kind of learned with that. So that was my next purchase and then shortly after that, I was like, dude, I'm on one. Like, let's get a fucking Raptor, Ford Raptor. I'm like, everyone wants a Ford Raptor. So I was like, boom, let's get it. And at that time, the Ford Raptor was in its last year of production for that model. I don't know if you've seen the new ones, but the body style of the new one, I'm not a fan of it. The old one was just more manly. It just had beef to it. It looked still like an old school truck. I'll have to pull up a picture so that you can see what it looks like. But I pimped that motherfucker out. I pimped them all out. Like I had a special design. I went balls to the wall with all of them. And then once I made the look, I never changed it. If I did, it was color.
And they were all the same color though, right?
At one point it was.
Yeah.
And I have the picture where it was like the his, hers, theirs. And I put like mine, also mine. But I was just having fun. I mean, at that age, I was 25 years old, just enjoying life, like doing what I love, inspiring people. Like even when I had the cars and when I was posting them, I wasn't posting them in a cocky way. I was posting them like you could get this too, and everything was motivational. You know, it wasn't to brag in any way. I mean, it could come off that way. I could see where someone would be like, you know, this guy's full of shit, you know, because again, like you only perceive someone for what they show you. So if you showed me that's all you're doing, those people are going to judge. I mean, people judge me now.
You were proud though. Like that's a huge accomplishment for a 24-year-old to have a Nissan like that, like a sports car, a bike, and a truck, be living in that apartment. You were balling. So like I think we as a society, when it comes to money, get so tight up when people show what they have or are prideful for what they have, but you were working hard for it.
Correct. And we were doing things that no one else was doing. So we were just excelling like exponentially. And so, you know, to kind of piggyback off that, like at that point, like financially things, I mean, I was at a place where I didn't even have to look at my bank account. Like so much was just coming in at that point. It didn't even make sense. And I was just building more. I mean, I had responsibilities within Shredz of like requirements for posting, like, and if I had to fulfill those to continue to get paid the way I was. So, and there was a lot of posting. So I had to also create other content. Imagine having to create 3 pieces of content every single day so that it justifies your Shred stuff getting like jumbled in. Yeah, like 1 a day. That means 5 of those 7 would have been Shred's posts.
Didn't you hired a videographer to help you with that at the time?
So at that time when everything's booming, we're making a bunch of money. We're also now we decided we're going to do like a tour. And we're staying, you know, within the U.S. So we did all the big states within the U.S., like Chicago, L.A. We went to Jersey because that was where I know New York's bigger, but we went to Jersey. So we've hit all the spots like that. And the goal with that was just to expand more, to give back to our fans. Because every time we did those events, that's what the sole purpose was. We gave away so much shit. And so we went to all these big places. It was a 2-day event. You know, the first one was like a meet and greet. And then like a personal workout if they wanted to like watch and learn from us. And then the other one was kind of like we all went up and gave our backstory and they got to do more of a meet and greet. So it was dope. I mean, we got our true super fans that came to it. And so because everything was like just on point, I was like, yo, this is the perfect opportunity where I can kind of just film my life. And I feel like if I get a videographer, which because I was getting these cars, I got into the scene of that, like from mutual friends. And so I was like, I'm looking for a videographer. So I actually found one through the car scene. So his experience was only within the cars, but he still knew how to film. So I just hired him. I think at that time I was paying him $4,000 a month.
He just followed you around and filmed
and I
you?
just said, hey, listen, I'm going to have a schedule for you Monday through Sunday. 2 of the days you can edit. And then the other days, like if I decide we want to work, we work. There were some times where he had the whole week off. I didn't feel like doing shit. Yeah. But then there was the other weeks I was doing 5 days with him. And then the other 2 days were to edit. And as far as like what he was allowed to do outside of it, I said, as long as you ask me first, but nothing fitness or anything that I do. It has to be completely separate, and I'm cool with it. So that was pretty much like our, initial agreement as far as, how I brought him onto the table. But it was a good way to, like I said, give people a little different insight of me, because now he can take the responsibilities off of me, and we could just go into the gym and create all these videos, and it's through his lens.
The videos were sick. You showed me some. Didn't you show me one, like you and Chad had the same car at some point? Each had a truck?
Oh, yeah. So shortly after, when I got the truck, Chad was just doing a lot of things within the company to continue to grow. So he was making a lot of money too. He also became part CEO of Flavor God. Did you ever try that?
Yeah, I used to order it. Steven and I used to order it a lot.
And they just had a great business model. It was like the only way you could get the pizza seasoning. Do you remember that one?
No.
So you didn't have that?
No,
I'm not a big seasoning person.
I went later on when they had like the cinnamon sugar and like the cooler ones like
but
that.
But they had this deal where they would do it all the time, where the only way you can get the pizza is you'd have to buy the whole pack.
Because that was their most popular
and that
one.
was everyone wanted, and they always made it like it was limited sale. They just were marketing it that way.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah, so he's killing it with that, and he decides.
So he was doing both.
He was doing Shredz, and then he was doing the CEO with, like, separate. Arvin ended up joining with Flavor God, and they were all part of a team making percent. I don't know what their percentages were, but that's what it ended up turning into. And it all started with this guy that he used to work at a BJ's restaurant with.
Damn.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So because he's making money, he also sees me getting stuff, so he decided to get a Raptor too. He got the same exact one as me, but his was red. And we took a picture, and again, like our friendship was like one of one. So like everyone saw it. He just was like my little mini me. That was like the alter side of it, And so, like I said, we were kind of going into, at that point, like how was Shredz making the money?
How are you making the money? How many different types of compensation did you have at this time? So you had Shredz, you had. The clothing brand was gone because Shredz paid you more. You were doing Flavor God. What else?
Yeah, so like you said, it was Shredz, coaching, Flavor God, and that's it. It was just those three.
And challenges.
Well, that's coaching.
What would you say you were making a month at this time?
So at this point, like I had talked about in the last episode, like we were making off of bottle sales. Like every sale, every regular, person we're selling, it's all commission based. And so obviously like a bottle was $15, we would get 5. So obviously it was a good commission. Not just like, hey, you made $150, you get 10%. We were getting 5 of every bottle. So I'd get $45 out of the $150. I mean, that's a pretty good cut. So by the time we, did this for like almost a year and a half now, and creating our identity within our own personal branding within Shredz, they gave us the option of like deciding, like, do you want to switch from the commission base, which is, 1 month you could make this much and the next month you could not make anything. So you're running the risk. So everyone had a decision to make. I don't know who they offered it to or who not. I just know the main ones got it for sure. And I know I took it.
The salary.
I took the salary. And at that point, my salary was $30,000 a month, which was the most out of anything that I was making.
What people make a year.
Yeah, it was insane.
At that time.
Yeah. And so you take that side, or from what I heard through the numbers, Joey was making double what I was making. And Paige could have been making more than him. So, I mean, I get why they didn't do the salary, because I'm sure the salary was less.
You just wanted something guaranteed.
I'd rather just post, not have to stress, like, did this month I sell enough? Like, I didn't want to be that type of person. I wanted to live my life and be an inspiration. I don't want to be selling people all day. Like, that's boring. So, so that's how the number breakdown. And then for the monthly challenges, we're still doing regular coaching on top of it. But obviously the majority of the coaching was coming from, the monthly challenges that we were doing. But, we were signing up every single month between 2 to 250 like people. And it was 250 to sign up. So, I mean, you do the math, 250 people times 250, that's like 50,000.
It's a lot of money. Math is not my strong suit, you guys. I may be a doctor, but so who did you have help you? You said you had an assistant.
Yeah. So again, at this point, we're pumping it out. Like, we're making tons of money doing online coaching, giving $10,000 away. Like and we were changing lives like every single month. Like people, and we changed up the challenge where we're giving away money in different increments, so it made people feel like they could join and at least win something.
Yeah.
Versus
not
it just being
one
all 10.
person.
Correct. Yeah. So we were doing this consistently, and I had mentioned when I was with Shredz, and we did our first one, at the very beginning of it, and kind of revolutionizing this. I always tell people, I'm like, see those 30-day challenges? I'm like, I started that. There was no one doing it before me. Paige was also copying me and doing the same thing and making the same type of money and doing the same type of business model. And so, so when they hired my assistant at the time, that was Dave, and he was part of the back end, just like Chad was.
Shredz hired him for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I was in Jersey. So Shredz hires him. They bring him on board for me. I think Shredz was taking a cut of it. And so, he worked with me all the way from then, all the way to, me moving back to California. And somewhere along that line from when we first got together and me moving, he had brought his girlfriend into the business. And I blindly was known about this, right? And so I remember one day she texted me and said something related to the coaching. And I was like, why are you asking me? And long story short, he had taught her the same things that he was instilling in our coaching, and he pretty much just gave her the job because
so he didn't tell you that he had her doing it?
He just did it on his own. And she was doing so good, I had no clue. That's how good he did. So it wasn't necessarily that he brought her on and she was less than, because she was just as good.
So you were okay with it?
Yeah, it was
once
fine.
You found out.
I had no other choice.
Right.
It was already switched.
Yeah.
And so, he had more responsibility, so he couldn't take it on. He didn't want to give it to anyone back at maybe the company. I don't know.
He wanted the money.
Yeah, so he hired, pretty much just brought her on. So I was cool with it, but I just had said, next time something like this occurs, I need to know about it. You can't just make a self-decision and
with your coaching.
Correct.
Yeah.
So anyways, fast forward into California and living there for a couple months, they ended up breaking up. And so, obviously that was a pivotal point because she's working for me, and she had been working for me for months. And so, just like any bad breakup, what do you think he wanted me to do? He wanted me to take it from her,
yeah,
and give it to him, and even though months had gone by and he hadn't touched it. And so, what would you do? What would you do in that scenario?
I would have kept her because, you were working with her at this point a little bit more closely, right? What was her name?
Kelly.
So, at this point, you guys had established a relationship. So why would you just break off when he's
Correct.
the one who pawned it off on her
Yeah,
in the beginning?
And so when they split, I told him, I said, I understand where you're upset, but you mixed business with pleasure, and you brought her on, and you didn't even ask me. I'm not going to change what she's doing for my business because you're mad you're not getting the money. So, that's just how I took her side. And if you looked at the two, he was more my friend than she was. Never spoke to me again. We had the expos. He fucking couldn't stand me.
Yeah, because he still worked for Shredz.
Yeah, the whole time. Our differences after that, it was just, he was non-existent because he was so separated. I think he came around over time and he realized it's childish. You did this. Don't put me in a position to make that kind of decision, or I will.
Yeah. So your guys' relationship was fine then for the most part?
Yeah, so it got toxic. So I just told her, you should move to California. Your sister's here. And so she moved back, and at that point she was my assistant. She was helping me with a lot of things, but mainly the coaching. That was the main part of it. But she was making so much that she was a part of a lot of other things too. And so I know I talked about when I first moved back, I got the GTR. So we fast forward and we're getting closer to my birthday, and it's a perfect time to bring up the backstory before I get into my birthday. When we were looking at cars for the GTR in the beginning, I remember Chad was motivated to get an R8. He wanted an R8. Do you know what that is?
An Audi.
An Audi R8, yeah. Which I guess would say comparable in the GTR aspect of the supercar nature. And so we went to this dealer and we were looking at Lambos too. And we were looking at some, and I remember the dealer was laughing at us for even thinking that we had a shot at getting that.
No, that's a supercar. A Lambo's a supercar.
To each their own. So you wouldn't label the GTR supercar?
No, I would say it's a sports car.
I guess that's up for a discussion. I'm not a big car person, so I bet you there's people that would disagree because the horsepower on that motherfucker is next level.
Let's put a poll.
Off the line, 0 to 60, GTR beats a Lambo.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I had both.
I know.
And from sturdiness, if I reached high speeds on a Lambo, oh my god, it's veering. I was like, oh shit. The GTR, it's heavy.
But but I still think a classification is still different.
if you look at the two, there's definitely a big price difference. Yeah. And they look completely different. One definitely looks more exotic, but in the car scene, it's crazy. I was getting more people talking about my GTR than I was my Lambo.
We'll have to poll the audience. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So anyways, So I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to be back here, but not to get it from you, but to get one. And so every year I was making goals for myself. And so that year, I told myself, for my 25th birthday, I'm going to get a Lambo. I mean, at that time, they just switched over to like the Huracan, and that was the first year, it was 2015. And so we fast forward to like right around my birthday, and sure enough, like I met this dude, and we link up, and I go sign the paperwork. This was the first one that I leased because it was fucking expensive. Like,
so you got the Lambo.
I got the Lambo at 25. And you know what? I made a post that the day that I got it and did the whole thing because I had a full-time videographer. So we did the whole get up, like, today's the day to get the fucking Lambo, like, you know, the whole shit. What were we going to say?
I was going to say, have you ever seen Pretty Woman?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, there's a scene where she goes, it's like you had a Pretty Woman moment. She goes dress shopping. She's a hooker in this very expensive place, and they like laugh her out of the store. And then she comes back and like buys a bunch of shit. And she's like, I don't need your fucking help. And you had your own little Pretty Woman moment.
Yeah.
But with a Lamborghini.
Yeah, with a Lambo. And it was cool because there was people going back to like the 10-month post when I was sitting on the Lambo saying how I was going to get one. They're like, dude, he fucking said it like 10 months ago. It wasn't even a year. So people were just like jazzed up. And I was doing everything I said I was going to do, you know, and how was that not inspiring to people? You know, so I was just living life, you know.
Living life.
Living life.
Having 3 cars.
So at that point I had the GTR, I had my street bike, and then I also had my Raptor, and then I had my Lambo. And when I was parking it, I only had 2 spots. So like I would do 2 spots, obviously the GTR and the Lambo, and then I'd put the truck in the guest parking, and then I'd put my bike somewhere behind, and they would get mad at me. Sometimes they'd give me tickets, but they wouldn't give me an extra spot. Is that my fault?
I mean, it's a little egregious to have 3 cars. Plus a bike. I'm just saying, you're one person.
Yeah, I was just living it up. But you know, for me, every time I bought them, it was for content. I was just exploiting the shit out of all those like pieces that I had
and doing it with Shredz.
Pictures and videos with or without Shredz.
So you had to do 3 posts a day for Shredz?
5
posts a day.
Yeah. So actually, this is good because you know when it talked about more, but like outside of the 30,000 that we were making a month, like with the 5 posts, like when sales would come, like let's say Memorial's coming up, let's say it's 4 days, they would say, all right, if you post outside of those 5 posts, everyone extra is your paid per post rate. So there'd be weekends where I posted 9 extra times, and my paid per post rate was $1,500. So like 1,500 times 9.
That's insane.
You know, like what is that? Like let's say 14,000. I think it is. That I would get that on top of my 30,000 for the month. So there'd be months where I was getting like 50 racks.
That's
just
so
from
insane.
And so I was blowing up my page with fucking graphics all day. Memorial. I was doing like 5 posts a day about Memorial.
And you were posting for Flavor Guide.
Yeah, but I was also doing a sale with them, and even them, I was posting twice a week. Twice a week, every week. So what is that? 8 posts, and I was getting like 7,000. I mean, stupid. Yeah, the numbers were just didn't even make sense.
You had to have a videographer to help you because there's no way one person could do all that content by themselves.
Oh yeah, he was doing everything,
Yeah.
and I would just say, hey, this is the deadline. I need to post by this, and he would get it done. You know, I know we talked about too, like the content you see now, like the viral guy like Ashton with his content, like I was doing that 10 years ago. I made it known, like get in my GTR, look all fresh, get out, like, you know, make it all trendy with my Louis bag, and then put it down and do the workout. Like that's the same thing now with numbers of like noon, 1,
and
2.
then you even at this time created your own brand, so you had more content to make.
Yeah, and so because I was working within the car scene, and I got that guy, the guy that was helping me wrap my cars became my business partner, and he had a back history with clothes, and so we started the dedicated brand. It was just a small thing, you know, nothing crazy. It was a cool way to have people represent my brand. My goal in mind was never to like have myself make all this money, you know. It was just to see people wear my shit. You know, I made everything like exclusive, and I think that was another turning point with Shredz too, because it was the first time I was on my own. You know, obviously you stick to a brand and you're associated with them, so you always wonder like, can I stand alone? You know, and so we did some of the, you know, popular expos within the brand too, and you know, I remember those. I think the first one we did was the Anaheim Fit Expo.
Didn't you bring your car?
Yeah, we brought the Lambo and the GTR in there, and we even revved it. We almost got kicked out, but that was the first expo alone. Without anyone,
and
just Devin Physique standalone.
Upset with you?
No, because it was with my brand. I was paying for everything. Like they had no issue because it was like for my own brand.
You still have a chain that says dedicated.
Yeah, but this is new. Yeah, I ended up making this later. I mean, that's always been a part of me. It's, you know, I have that on my head, right? Like my forehead,
No.
my eyebrow.
Oh, that's what that says?
Dedicated. Well, you've never seen
You
it?
have so many tattoos, Devin.
Well, yeah, it's on my.
Where do I start?
I have a lot of like D logos and the whole nine. So, we went to big expos. We did, like I said, the Fit Expo in Anaheim, and it was a great success. I felt like so relieved to know that there was like a line of people there just to meet me. It was cool to see that I was impacting individuals outside of Shredz.
Because you weren't sure when you made this brand on your own if it was gonna flop or do well, and that must have been a really good feeling that it did.
Yeah, you never know when you're doing something alone. Like, how good are you alone? Yeah. Like obviously we knew that Paige carried the weight a lot of the time when it came to the crowds and stuff. So standing alone, it felt good. So we went to all the big ones. Joey came to some of them, and yeah, we just had fun with it. It never escalated to anything crazy. It was always like just for myself, limited edition, everything, just letting people enjoy, what the brand had to offer. So it lived long enough, but then, when it ran its course, I was like, I wasn't inspired to feel the need to like continue doing it. You know what I'm saying?
So you ended Dedicated. So then what happened with Shredz next?
Yeah. So once, at that time, Dedicated was still going through. It just kind of fizzled out, with things. But as far as Shredz, we're transitioning into. At that time, we didn't know this, but it was the last like Shredz that we were going to have together. Now, at this point, a year later from having the biggest booth, now, things have changed in a year. And I kind of briefly talked about how, they started bringing on ambassadors, and it wasn't about, do they fit the brand as a marketing tactic? It was like, did they have followers?
Yeah, hot
so
girls.
we were getting all the pre-OnlyFans girls,
And this is 2015, right?
Yeah, 2015. Yeah, the end of 2015, September. And so, this was that first time that we're bringing on both now. We have like the athletes, and then they had like the ambassadors. So they're also bringing their fans too. So like, I think we felt some type of way like they were intruding on something we built, and they don't necessarily represent the brand.
Diluting
and we're giving them notoriety as if they're the same as us. We never felt like they were equals, not for anything other than they didn't represent the brand. Yeah, they had more followers than us because we didn't have that, but that was it.
It was diluting all of the hard work that you guys built.
Yeah, and the guy that we had that was marketing at the time, he was looking at it from numbers like that. He wasn't looking at it like, just because she's got $1 million, does that translate to money? And because we were doing those things first, there was no like, you're doing it right or wrong.
No rule book. Did that like change the people who were following the brand? Like, how did they receive all of this?
Yeah, so I think because now we also have ambassadors that are huge, and they're getting marketed on platforms on their page that are from people that probably don't even work out. We were just getting more like notoriety, but with any positive, there's a lot of negative too. I think there was a time where you couldn't pull up on Instagram without seeing Shredz somewhere.
Yeah. 5 posts a day from all of you guys.
I mean, like I told you in the beginning of starting to now, like one thing that's never changed is hate. It's always there. It doesn't matter if you're killing life, if you're unsuccessful, whatever, there's always someone shittier out there that's got something to say. So I think it just brought a lot of that as well. So, we go into this last Olympia, and, one of the things that I loved about Shredz is we were always a tight knit. When we did these Olympias, they would rent out villas like at the MGM Grand, and I forget what the high end ones are called. And we would like meet before like big events, and we would like, talk about what we were grateful for, and just like things that people wouldn't do, and I mean, we had moments where people were crying, so there was a lot of closeness that was intertwined with what we had from the close-knit. So that also put a rut in it, because now we're looking at these like, you're here now when we were making money. You weren't here when we were having to get the money.
So the core group of you guys were close.
Yeah, I would say all the Shredz people, even the lowest ones that were athletes and didn't make as much, they still felt that way about them. They probably felt that way about them too, just as much, because they're taking away from them too. So the dynamic change, from that aspect of it being with the mixture of, having more attention drawn on us. And then Olympia in general was charging like up the ass for like just to hang something, was so much money. So we just decided to do our own thing. So, on that last Olympia, like, because I had the Lambo at this point and I'm just balling out, I was like, all right, we're going to make a video. And because I had the videographer, I just, when I was inspired to make a video, I would just tell him my concept, boom, we would do it. So this concept was to fly to the private airport in Orange County, get on like a private jet. And at that time, it was Natalie Eva Marie. She wasn't a WWE athlete. She was just herself. And she was married to, I think she's still married, Jonathan Coyle. And they were athletes of the brand as well. So at that time, she was big, but not for those things. So we made this video of me and her getting out of the Lambo, walking up to like the plane and then taking off and landing in Vegas. Like, who does that? People do
That's
that now.
cool.
10 years ago, just no one would fathom to even think of doing that, let alone 20, 25-year-old. So we made our entry there, and then, like I said, we had a completely separate interaction with the fan base. We did nothing part of Olympia, and we did our own thing.
The whole Shredz team?
Yeah, the whole like, we had our own auditorium that we did like our own little Shredz.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was complete. It was just different because there was some sort of like pride and joy you took out of, like, we would walk past other booths and they would just stare at us and like mad dog us. I'm sure people hated us.
Did you still have like as big of a fan base in line at that Olympia?
It was always bigger because, include the other athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, our booths were just insane.
Yeah.
That's why I said we had to have security in order to, not be the bad person.
Dang. So everybody, you guys were all still friends with, did any of you guys become like frenemies or hate each other at any point in time?
Yeah, so like, I think after, once we did the Olympia and we settled back into our, normal lives of everything like that, like I said, the waves of just having so many people a part of it, because here was one of the big things, like, we were like the angels of baseball. Everyone wanted to be on it, but it was so hard to be a part of it. And so when we started bringing these brand ambassadors, like you said, it diluted the brand. And so that exclusivity just continued to, go in different directions. And so, shortly after that time, going back to my business structure, living up in the, the penthouse with Chad, we were also going through things as friends. And, to make matters worse, like, one of the ambassadors, he was like in love with, and I'm like, I can't stand this bitch. Even to this day, when I see her, I still can't stand her. I don't really see her, but when I do. So, shortly after that trip, I realized, like, the only times he was hanging out with me was when his girl wasn't available. And, a little backstory, like, my dad wasn't in my life. And a lot of the reason why he wasn't was for the same reasons. Like, he married someone that didn't want me a part of it. So he just ex-nayed me. So I think there could have been, at that time, some sort of emotion attached like that. Like, you're doing me like my dad did. So long story short, we ended up not becoming friends anymore, or we weren't friends anymore, which was kind of awkward too, because he lives across the way,
And you guys were best friends for years at this point in
and
time.
so we just, I think things could have been handled differently, but at our age, it was just, we're doing what was best for us.
Yeah.
I think I told you, like, when things don't work out anymore, like, sometimes it's nobody's fault. We were meant to go our own direction.
Yeah.
So, that happened. And then I remember I one night I was just sitting there and I get this random text message from this girl, and I didn't know who it was. And it was my assistant's best friend, and she's ratting her out. And she's, telling me how, she's drinking every night, and, she's not answering your emails. I'm having to do them sometimes.
Shit.
And I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, is this real? What would you think? Like, if a random chick, would you believe her, or would you question it?
Did you know the chick?
No, I've never met her in my life.
I would probably reach out to my assistant and be like, what is this all about? I would feel skeptical, but I would also feel some type of way, like the fact that I don't know this person and they felt the need to reach out to me. I would probably feel some type of validation just in that, unless they became not friends and she was trying to go after her. But
yeah, I mean, I guess I perked an ear up from it, but then I went back and looked and realized that she was slacking. Like, she was sending the same meal plan to everyone and not customizing it the way that she was supposed to, like, doing a lot of things. So I don't remember at what point, but like shortly after the Olympia, and then me and Chad no longer becoming friends, this incident happens, and so I let her go. And I don't remember who I replaced her with. I think I just let her go. Like, and at that time I was like, is this girl trying to, like, get her job? What was her true intent?
Her motive. Yeah.
But she was right. The numbers were not reflecting the way that they should. And then I don't remember how the steps played out as far as how, if I called her out on it or what, but let her go. And, so that was like the end of November.
So would you say at this point, like, you and Chad aren't friends, you had to fire your assistant, like, is this where things started to, like, spiral for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess coincidental in the timeline, but not thinking back. But this was like probably the first time that Shredz was getting hated on. We had a couple pages, but there was some that stood out more than others. It was like their sole objective to, like, bring us down. Yeah, like it was to cancel. Like, they were doing whatever it took. So, at that time, we were being targeted, me, Paige, and Joey, and you know, for different things, which is kind of funny. Like when I tell this story now, like for instance with Paige, like what people were like over analyzing about her, and to this day I don't know if it's true or not, so I'm not going to make an assumption, but it was she had a fake ass. And I remember when we were at one of the expos, like the girls were like talking shit on her, like the other girls that were a part of our team, just being jealous for it. And like, and it's funny because it's like you call it a BBL, right? And it's like that's the norm now.
Oh, people like go promote that they do it. Yeah.
But back then, you know, just like a lot of the things we're going to talk about, like that was just foreign. So like instead it was just, I'm going to talk shit. So that was big for her. Some hometown people were coming out and saying nasty things about her. And, you know, again, that also puts her at jeopardy because now people are going to view her and talk shit. And it was just nasty to see like how one person can say something and then people just come out the word work saying like the most vulgar shit.
I feel like you can't spend that much time in the limelight for that long without attracting equal or as like some negative attention. And, you know, you guys got so big that you're going to get that 50-50 balance of positive and negative, and sometimes the scales can tip a little bit.
Yeah, true. And so she was getting, you know, hated on for that. And then at that, Joey was getting hated on for gay for pay. And again, I don't know if he did it, you know, like, and if he did, I don't really give a fuck. But see, same thing. Like I use him as an example, like what is so normal now? OnlyFans, like,
right.
And people would be fucking other dudes for free.
Right.
You know, and just showing it.
Right.
You know, like the gay for pay, I think they just flex. Like, I don't even think he fucks anyone. Like, but it's just funny how like
there's levels.
But I mean, people just be fucking dudes, like, and then trying to say they're straight.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just wild how things have changed. But so that was one of his big things, and you know, they were spending a week after week. It almost became like an episode. You know, like, and we knew who they were, and it was almost like they were holding us at ransom. Like they were just fucking.
Oh, like wait to see what's dropping.
Like they were just, I don't know, like who they were getting things from. You know, or what?
Sleuthing.
That's why I said like they compare. It's comparable to that. What's that one guy's name?
Goop.
Yeah, like
John Dorsey.
Yeah, he does that now. Like, you know, with people, but to normalize that, like yeah, he brings attention to it. But how much does that hate go to that page for? How long?
Yeah.
You know, like what? A couple weeks? Like day? Like so? Like I don't know. It was just different back then.
But this seems like speculation, not like hard evidence of like they're a child molester or predator. So they got Paige first, then Joey. What did they?
And then
you.
And then again, because it was like a soap opera almost. Like they had new things. I remember they were like, we have this new thing and it's on Devin, and I'm just like, what the fuck would they possibly have like on me? It didn't even make sense. And so I'm just like, you know, what do you do? I mean, what would you do in that scenario? Like,
shit your pants until you found out what it was. I mean, so you saw through these channels that they were going to drop something on you, and you were just...
So I remember I was doing a photo shoot with my videographer, and I don't remember what dropped or whatever, but you know, to give a backstory of, you know, what they came from. So there was a time period where we had our videographers, photographers, so they were doing all of our edits, right? And I remember there was one time our graphic designer like gave me a photo of me and he edited me. And I was just like, damn, this looks good. And so
like Photoshop.
Correct. Yeah. And you know, with my workout, whatever. And so I got to a point where I think I just felt like I had this pressure to be someone at a young age and like hold a representation of myself, that I just started to fall in love with the images and the edits they were doing for me. And so I don't remember how it came out. I think that there was a picture of me that I posted, and they got one from the Shredz, and they weren't the same. So I don't know if that was intentional or what, but long story short, that's what they came out, the Devin's photoshopping, right? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm under this scrutiny of that, and people are just talking shit, making videos, like the whole nine about, you know, Photoshop. And so like, and those moments I'm like, fuck, dude, what do I do? Like, and mine was worse than them because theirs was allegations. Mine was
this
like
is
proof.
Legit. But and back to what you said, like, all of the things that you guys were doing weren't normal, like having an assistant, working with a team, all of those things that now, you know, when someone says, oh, you're coming on with my team, it's normal. It's not taboo. Same thing with Photoshop. Now, everyone has those editors on their apps, on their phones, and they can edit the shit. Facetune, people can edit everything. And it's become so normal that I would say it's a problem, or like filters that just change the size of your face just by clicking a button. But back then you had to have the software and know how to do it.
That wasn't even a thing. You couldn't even do that.
You couldn't do that, right? No. You had to have software on your computer.
Now that you're saying it, I'm like, the Facetune, like, these girls don't even look the same.
They don't even know.
That's why I'm saying when I'm telling this story, it's giving justification to the people that never got to hear my story, because when this was going on, like the Photoshop, like all the things, and I'm having to endure them, and I got it the worst out of the three of us.
Yeah.
I haven't even went to the worst part yet. Like I had a lot to endure in those moments, and I don't think people understand that, because the things that I went through, like if it happened now, it's just like slap on the wrist.
Didn't someone like make a shirt like mocking you?
So and here's the thing, right? When in that moment when I got accused for the Photoshop, like I also was the guinea pig in that moment for that first one. Like I knew everyone else was doing it.
Yeah,
like
all the shreds.
Like they were doing. I remember there was times where me and Joey were sitting there editing our own photos.
Yeah.
Like Paige was doing it. Everyone was doing it. Like there was if you were a top influencer at the time, you were fucking doing it.
But you didn't out anybody.
No, I just chose. I don't know. In those moments, I didn't even think about outing anyone. I didn't think about snitching on anyone. Like none of those things. I just took it like a man, and I didn't have any emotion other than like, well, this is what I'm dealt with. Like, God put me here for a reason. I can overcome it. Like that was kind of like the only thing I thought to myself, because I don't think everyone could have endured it. But it was crazy in those moments. I never thought to say anything to defend nothing, like none of those things.
No.
So shortly after this happens, then again, I don't remember where I was or what. There's another one. Oh, we got a fucking bigger one, and I'm just like, dude. And it's for me now. So I'm like, I'm just getting fucking raped, like with just one thing after another. So I can't relive this moment because I don't remember what I was doing the day of. Like it wasn't that traumatic. Like I've obviously grown from it. But long story short, I mentioned how Kelly was fired, right?
Yeah.
And so this is like the perfect opportunity for for her to come out and say that she has dirt on me, right? And so, so she messages the hate page, and they come out with a thing like, check this YouTube out. Devin's ex-assistant have something to say. And even to this day,
she dropped the vid. She dropped the vid. But people were making YouTube videos about you at this time. Like in doing research for this episode, I looked it up, and like Devin Physique Photoshop, there's hundreds that have like 500,000 views, 600,000 views. Like people, like you were the most talked about man on the internet this time, and this hadn't even gone out yet. So then Kelly puts out a YouTube video.
So then it's another one. And at this point, before she put out the video, there was already like some. I mean, it was nasty. Like I really saw how people were. Like even people that were known in the industry were sending me DMs, calling me a piece of shit, and like hope you die, and like crazy, just crazy motherfucking shit. Like it was insane. So at that time too, like with the haters that we had, one guy was, I don't know how he weaseled his way in, but he somehow was a part of the hate, but on the other side, and they loved him. And who do you think that was?
I don't know.
You actually mentioned his gym.
Someone famous.
But when you said that you moved at the gym, you compared
Bradley Martin.
So yeah, I always call him a leech, even to this day. But he was a part of the hate, and he was totally egging it on, and they even made a shirt. And I'm sure, like, again, the past is going to know, but it was called Adobe Gains, which obviously is Adobe is like the Photoshop, right? And then Gains, right? And they were selling the fuck out of that t-shirt, and he was selling it with them and fucking bagging the shit out of me, and he's doing all of it.
And he used to be like at expos with you, trying to be buddy with you.
When we did the Shredz tour and we had that, he was at all the stops and the ones that made sense.
And he photoshops.
The Olympia, the Olympia. He was at all of our booths, just hanging out. But he's smart. But it was just leechy, like he would stand there because he had relevancy by doing that and building his image. That Bradley's just miraculously here.
Relevancy by proxy. Yeah.
And he just capitalized on it. And in my head, I'm just like, you're doing the same fucking shit. And not just the Photoshop, right? So we go into this video being made of Kelly, right? And so to give context again, I know we've talked about it briefly, but like having an assistant was unheard of. Okay?
At the time, yeah.
Scaling your business was unheard of.
Right.
All these things were unheard of. Like if I was a coach, I was doing the coaching. That's the interpretation. Whether you were selling it that way or not, that's what people believed. Okay, so I can't tell you that I was directly saying, it's me. But I wasn't necessarily saying it wasn't either. It was like that middle ground, right? It's marketing, you know? And so that's the context in which I'm bringing it up, because people looked at it then like I was just the worst person on the planet.
Like you were a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, like how could you just have them purchase a plan and get the best results they've ever had, but it wasn't really you. So you know what? You're a fake. Like, we still taught her. Like, how do you, you know, we gave you a plan that worked, and did you lose weight? Yeah, so shut the fuck up.
And now people use ChatGPT to write their
I know.
plans. Like
the list is laundry
Right.
list. So she comes out with this video, and it's like the perfect, like, 4 seconds of, what is it, 4 seconds of fame?
10 seconds of fame.
10 seconds of fame. Like, I don't know how long the video was.
It's
but
like 22 minutes. I watched the whole thing in detail.
So anyway, she makes this video, and I remember at that time I had told my mom's like, don't watch it. She lies a bunch and yada, yada, yada. I think one of the big things that she harped on was she would say that people felt bad for her, that I made her Uber to come get her check. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but how much were you making? 10 G's? Like, Uber here 5 times, bitch.
Right, and why don't you have a car?
Yeah, well, that is actually perfect. Why we should ask her, even to this day. I didn't even address that, but like, she didn't have a car because she had 2 DUIs.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, so maybe you Ubered to me because you couldn't drive.
Oh, snap.
You know, so like, you know, but little things. There were so many things
Digital
where
payment wasn't a thing.
it wasn't. It wasn't.
You had to get the check and the cash.
I'm sorry. Like, you want your $10,000 check for just answering my emails? Like,
right.
So, you know, it is what it is, you know?
So
like,
then that blew up the hate. Mad.
So on top of that, I was already talked about things. So people were using me as clickbait everywhere. You know, like on top of that. And the reason I said that is, you know, I sat there and I'm having 2 things just drop bombs on me. And they're not just bombs that I'm having to do alone. They're bombs that should be dropped on everyone. I shouldn't be the only one. But I just took it all. I didn't expose one person. I didn't say any negative things about anyone. I just took it. You know, and it was, when I look back at it now, I'm like, I don't know how I didn't just say, but I'm not doing it by myself. And I watched, you know, people around me like turn a naked eye and act like, yeah, you're alone. You know, you did it. You know, like no one was really there for me, you know, in those moments. And, you know, there was a time where it was late at night. And, you know, at this point, like if I was posting, it was just hate. I don't know if they were using fake comments or what, but like, it was just stupid. Like, I would have 1,000 in an hour
of just people hating.
I mean,
you.
fuck, they love me that much.
Did you ever try to like delete or respond?
So when all that hate was coming in, like I said, we were getting tons of messages, and I was sitting there one night with an ex at the time, and we had 2 phones. She had one and I had one, and they were just coming in left and right, left and right, left and right. We were trying to delete them, and at that time, like, the hate was like insane, right? I was the most talked about person, so, you know, they were saying to me the most vulgar shit, you know, and so, you know, death threats and hope you crash your Lambo and like just gnarly things where you're like, damn, people are just, they have no chill, you know? And so, you know, I remember in that same time period, the only time that someone reached out to me was Joey. And he said, you know, if I was in your position right now, he's like, I probably wouldn't even be alive, you know? And that's why I said, like, God, I felt in those moments that God put me in that position because I was strong enough to overcome it. That's just all I thought. I wasn't thinking like, why is this happening to me? You know, people get in bad spots and they start to feel guilty or sorry for themselves. I never thought that. I just was like, I just got to deal with it, but I'm strong enough. I can. So when I was sitting there, I was like, this is stupid. Like, I could sit here all night, all day, just tending to people that don't fucking matter. You know, they're not a part of my life. They don't pay my bills, like none of those things. So I need to make a decision. So I remember sitting there and I said, I can either allow this hate to consume me and you never see me again. And ultimately that's the whole point of canceling someone, is so you never see them again. Or the other option is, you know, be that comeback story, right? And don't tend to the hate. You know, I give the example of, if you had you said you had an older brother, right? I mean, the only reason your older brother teases you is because it's fun and because you are bugged by it. Now, if one day you decide, you know what, I'm going to show him it doesn't bother me, is he going to tease you for a couple of days? Probably. But I mean, at some point, he's going to look himself in the mirror and go, it's not fun to tease someone that's not responding back to me. And so naturally, over time, that's exactly what I did. I just chose to post every single day. I said, I'm going to post once a day, and I'm just going to let it come in.
Ignore it.
Yeah, just ignore it. I didn't even block no one, nothing. I just let it come in. Yeah, and I posted it, and then I went on with my day. Yeah. You know, I didn't feed into what are the comments being said. You know, I think we've elaborated with the little bit of hate you've got with your post. Like, how did you feel in those moments? Remember we talked about how you like have to know when to just not say something?
Yeah, I leaned on you. I had one post. It's my only post that has ever gone viral. It's of Steven. It's the last video I ever took of him. He's like jerking off a fake cable attachment, eggplant dildo thing. It's literally the last video I took of my husband. And I posted it with a trending audio that's like, little did I know this was the last time. And it's got like almost 11 million views right now. And once it got past 1 million, it is like, it's got like 14,000 like I don't know, or a lot of comments
Oh, it's
in
at
the
like 10
thousands.
million, isn't it?
But I had to reach out to Devin to say, how do I address this? How do I deal with this? Because I felt so personally attacked. But it's like, these are all just idiots that don't even know me. They don't know how I feel about my husband or whatever. And they think that he died yesterday just because I posted that. And then people are going to our videos that we made together saying, oh, look, she moved on. She's got a new man now. Like, it's just like, and then you taught me, like, you said, kind of had this come to Jesus speech with me, and you were like, are you going to let these people, you can interact with these idiots all day long, or you can just let them go. You can, if you really want to block and delete, but really they're just going to have conversations with themselves at this point, and you need to get over it. And it was this that you went through was so defining to teach me that I need to do the same. And I can't even imagine I've had it on one video.
Yeah, it wasn't even not even close. It was every post.
Everything.
And so, obviously there's videos being made. I mean, all sorts of people, like influencers that I didn't even know, like seeing them talk shit on comments about me that other videos. I'm like, man, this industry is just toxic as fuck. Like, I don't trust nobody, and at that time, like all the friends that were riding with me, they were nowhere to be found. I was doing this all alone, like no one wanted to associate themselves with me because all of a sudden it wasn't convenient anymore. And it's crazy, and it's so taboo how they talk about, like, who your real friends are when you have nothing to offer. That was exactly it. The minute shit hit the fan for me and I wasn't relevant to them, and it was about, oh, can you support me when there's hate? Nobody cared. Nobody. And I realized, like, damn, all these years. And that's why, people say money doesn't buy happiness. At that point, I was making every type of money that I could ever dream to make, but there was no happiness being fulfilled, because when things got taken from me, none of the happiness that was so-called in it was a part of me anymore. It was all gone.
What did Shredz do? Like, did they support you?
So because we had all this, right, this was, again, a point where Shredz had to do something. You can't, if I'm having all this scrutiny, like, what are you going to do with all these haters? What are you going to do? So I remember I got pulled into a meeting with them, and they're like, yo, listen, like, this is kind of how we're going to facilitate this. Like, we're going to let you go to the public, and they're going to think that you are no longer a part of Shredz, and Arvin's going to make a video announcing that, and yada, yada, yada. And, one of the big things then is like, okay, you're letting me go, so how do I make money? My money's already taken from me with coaching. Like, at that point, who wanted to work with me?
Yeah, it was gone.
No, like, I had to, like, I'm just living off whatever I had left at that point. So Arvin says, you're going to make a video. We're going to pay you half of your income. So $15,000. You're not going to post. We're just going to pay it. We're going to let the next couple months go by. And once those months go by, then we'll reassess and we'll just bring you back on, and at that time, like, what do you say? Like, no? Like, I don't even know what the right answer is. Like, even in those times, which were learning experiences, like, I didn't have any NDAs, like, people signing things. So people were just fucking harassing my name everywhere. Yeah. And I mean, I probably could have done defamation of character some way, but no one was guiding me at all. I was just left for nothing. Even Shredz wasn't guiding me the right way.
You were so young.
Yeah, this was the first time where I was like, dude, like, the company that I put everything into is not supporting me. I didn't feel it at all. Even to know you're letting me go to the public, like, at that time, it didn't make sense.
They could have came out with a statement and backed you up and validated you, and instead they were like, no, we're going to succumb to the public pressure.
Yeah, and those are those moments where, like, there's no track record to go, what's the right or wrong answer for it? So he was making his own right or wrong answer in that moment. And so he comes out with this video, and I remember, obviously, things were said that, I was going to get money, XYZ, so I just played along with it. I'm like, okay, well, 15,000, like, that's still good enough to...
It's only going to cover your cars in your apartment, pretty much, and then you're broke. But okay, were you still with Flavor God at this time?
Yeah. So after he drops this video and does what he does, like, there was tons of mixed reviews about it. Like, one of the big things was it was chopped up and edited. It wasn't even a run on. So, like, it didn't seem genuine. But then at the start, it's like, Devin's like a son to me. And then he lets me go, right? And so I think half of the people were like, damn, you just turned your back on him and just dropped him. And then the other half was obviously happy because they wanted to do... I think the goal was, like, to get them off our backs, right? And that was the whole reason why Shredz was making this video, thinking, okay, if we let him go, they're going to take the heat off of us. And it just never worked in that favor. And what's crazy is after that happened, the domino effect, it just got worse. And then people were leaving. And then it goes back to what I said about the ambassadors. Like, they were leaving. They wanted no part of it. Like, they were
like, Shredz kind of was...
Oh, yeah. It started
to... was shredding apart.
Yeah, it was...
So it started, everything kind of... Because you were one of the pillars of the brand. And Paige and Joey were getting hate too, so things just kind of started deteriorating even more. Yeah,
so at that point, like, everything was kind of falling the way it's supposed to, in a way that was as positive as it could, because when that was also happening too, like, to make matters worse, which brings into the whole business side, like, I'm having all this hate happen. And then I remember me and Chad aren't friends. So he decided to go on social media and talk shit on me too. So now why would anyone believe me at that point? Like my best friends turned against me, my assistant, like no one, at that point, I'm like, what could I possibly say for people to believe me other than just say nothing? So, and at that time, he helped me with a lot of things. And, we talked about this earlier because I didn't think about it. Like he used to write my captions, but they were so motivational. And it's like he wrote for me because I was not good at writing things the way that I can now. He just did it for me. And he knew like I would like
your vision, but he could articulate it better than you could.
Yeah, he would write it, and I would just be like, dude, I would have said this shit, but I don't know how you like put it into words.
I write our captions.
Yeah, when it comes to your stories, but so at that time, I look at it now, it's like I had a full blown team facilitating everything that I was doing, but then it all fell apart on me, and now all these things are being taken away from me. So, Shredz Arvin comes out with that video, and then everyone just starts to trickle. And I think it got to a point where like Paige is gone now. And we're just like, what the fuck? Like everyone's just bouncing. And it just validated like, damn, there were like, I don't know how they felt about it, but the loyalty was just out the window. You're being hated on, so we're dipping. Yeah. And it was coincidental after me. Now everyone's just dropping like flies. The ambassadors were the first to go. I think Joey was probably the last to go in all of it. And I think, like I said, it was pretty sad when things were transitioning in that period, because at that same time I was also moving out of that high rise. My lease was up and I was like, yo, it's time to buy a house. So at that time when all this is happening, I was in escrow for a house. And luckily at that point I was like, yo, I have to make changes to my life or else I'm going to be broke. So at that time, like all my purchases, cars I had bought, right? So the Lambo was the only rental that I had, not rental, but lease. I was paying $5,000 a month for it. And then my insurance was like $500. So like, I just knew like I could only carry that out. So I think the rest of the year I carried out having that car. And then I started, letting go of things. And so luckily in that escrow, I was able to get my money back. So I started to facilitate myself like, yo, things are going to change, in my life.
Did Shredz didn't end up following through, you told me, right? They didn't even end up paying you.
Well, so at this point when I'm doing the escrow and all that other stuff, like we were still in agreement that they were paying me, so it got to a point where these things are falling. Now I'm being told that I'm not going to get the money at all, and they couldn't justify it. I don't remember the conversations, but I just got to a point where everything was falling on me, and I never once blamed anyone else, but like I just need to take it and figure out what my next step is. Like all this stuff is crashing down on me. So luckily, like I said, I was moving out of that apartment and facilitating into something. I was able to get the money back from the escrow, so I didn't lose a lot of things in that scenario. But now where's my income coming from? My coaching's gone. I'm not getting paid by Shredz. I'm at nothing, and like coaching was all I had at that moment. So, I mean, I still was making money with the coaching, but it was significantly less. And, it was just, I think for me, like in those moments, like when I look back now, it's like, it was a dark place to be in. And in those moments, I wasn't thinking about growing. I was just hardening myself. I was just like, fuck everyone. I'm going to do this alone. My trust for people dropped tremendously.
And you closed off to the world, to your heart, everything. How could this experience not harden you after everything you went through with all of the people you were close with just shutting you out? You felt like you had no one, so you just turned to yourself.
Yeah, and so, when all this is transpiring, it was like that next pivot into, what my new life was going to consist of, like, what am I going to do now post Shredz? And so like when I was doing the coaching, my goal was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to keep pumping the posts every day, still had my videographer. But it was definitely one of those moments where I just felt like it was the darkest of places. Like there was plenty of times where I felt like I just wanted to end my life. I definitely had those moments towards the end, but I think that, one of the big things why this podcast was like so big for me is like, I wanted people to be able to listen to our podcast and hear what I have to say and maybe be able to take the lessons that I had to endure, all the bad ones, and apply it to their life so they don't have to do the same mistakes that I did. And I think it's hard for people to talk about these things because nobody wants to take accountability when they're wrong. I think that's like extremely hard to do, especially for me, like, to see those things and still come out with a positive reflection. I've had to progress. I've made more mistakes, to piggyback going into our next episode. I've made more mistakes throughout my life, but I've continued to grow. And that moment I wasn't growing, I was hardening. So it just shows you when you go through life, the next opportunity, when you get a good one, if you're not ready to grow from it, you're going to lose from that too. And so I think, something that's big for me is letting people know, like, we're all going to struggle, right? We're all going to go through things. I think it's important that it's okay to talk about the things when you don't feel okay. And so I think this sheds light on that and allows me to have the voice for the voiceless. because I think a lot of people think these things and have those mental struggles, whether it's social media or life, but they don't talk about it. And it took a long time for me to open up and be to this place. I have had to grow tremendously. Who I was 8 years ago wouldn't be able to talk like this.
No, not at all. If you could go back, I'm going to pose a deep question to you. If you could go back at that time and give yourself advice, or what's one thing you wish you could have done for yourself differently, or that you could have told younger Devin while he was going through that with the reflective knowledge that you have now?
Yeah, so I think I've actually had this conversation with people, and I think if we looked at the perfect fairy tale story, we would say we want to go back and change all these different things to make it that. But at the same time, I don't think I would change anything. If I had to endure all those things to be able to be where I am today, I feel like that never would have happened. I wouldn't be who I am now if I didn't endure those things, which goes back to what I said about when I was feeling those emotions. I was like, God put me here because he believes I'm strong enough to overcome it. So I wouldn't change anything. I would have done the same thing.
You don't think you would have wanted to give yourself a hug? I don't mean changing the narrative. I mean if there was a piece of advice that could have helped you navigate the end, or so it didn't take you 8 to 10 years to get to this point.
Yeah, well, the difference now is when I learn hard lessons, I ask myself when I learn hard things the hard way, whether it's emotionally fit, whatever, what's the lesson to be learned here? And so in that first defining moment, I didn't ask myself that. I just endured the pain, and then I held it in, which is why I say to people about this podcast, I'm being able to voice how I feel now when years ago I wasn't able to do that. So I think just every bad thing that happened to me is learn from the lesson. Don't make it hard on you so that you can't continue to grow, right?
So it's taken you all this time to get to this place, and I know that there's more lessons that you've learned along the way,
a lot more lessons.
And reflective which is going to lead us into what we're going to talk about next, we've been on both sides of this spectrum, and I'm sure everyone listening
which is good. I'm glad that you haven't done it and I have, which again, we talk about the negatives and how a lot of my life I think about those, but those are the defining moments of my life where I changed as a person. So imagine if just every good thing happened to me, I would never have grown. So I appreciate all the negativity. So going into our next one, which is the biggest topic I feel like when it comes to relationships, is cheating. And unfortunately, you're the one that has to be on the good side of it, and I'm on the bad side of it. So
I've cheated, but just on tests.
Yeah. So I'm thankful, and I feel good that I've been able to release that story of what transpired in my life, how the things back then that weren't the norm, they're so normal now, and how people see them in different lights. But like I said, I wouldn't go back and change anything, because every single good, bad, ugly thing that's happened, it's put me to where I'm at now. So, and then I can be that voice because I've been through shit. Right? If all those things were just perfect, I would just be some dude that no one gives a shit to hear from. But I think people need to hear these things. So I'm glad I was strong enough to endure it and come out on the other side and know that I've made a lot of mistakes, but I'm taking accountability, and now I'm a completely different person because of it. So I appreciate you guys listening. This has been a long time coming to express the emotions about the story itself, and giving my side of the story. And I think for me, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about just sharing my side. You take what you want. If you want to believe them still, you want to believe me. I don't care. There's their side, my side, and the truth. So there's always going to be people that don't agree. So for me, it's just a weight off my shoulders to be able to bring light to a situation, and be able to also showcase the bright future of more great episodes to come.
I appreciate you sharing, and I'm sure everyone else does. Now, everyone got the full story. And if you want to hear more of us, you can subscribe to our YouTube, which is Tell No Lies Podcast. Our Instagram is Tell No Lies Podcast. Our website is Tell No Lies Pod. And we are on all listening platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, all of the things that you can find. Again, I'm Dr. Ashley Contorno, Devin Physique.
You're actually getting really good at this.
Thank you.
That was
it was the smoothest one.
That was fucking smooth. See, so we continue to
grow,
be the yin and yang, and work coincide with one another with things that you're good at, what I'm not. So anyways, appreciate you guys for listening, and we will be back in a week for episode number 5.
Thank you. Cheating.
Peace.